Hey, my name is Christian. Hi, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Risk 360, and we have a really exciting story to share with you today. We're going to talk with Ann Turner from Fullstory. Fullstory is an amazing company. They take security and compliance really seriously. Historically, they've done ISO 27001, which is security, ISO 27701, which is privacy, and most recently ISO 42001, that is AI risk management. They also do a lot of other frameworks like SOC 2 and PCI and many others, and they're a big fan of our platform, fullCircle GRC, that they use to manage their entire program. Anne's an excellent professional. She's going to talk you through how they've built the program, how they maintain it today, and how they use fullCircle to manage their program. I hope this gives you a lot to think about and you learn a lot from Anne, and we appreciate you watching this story. So Anne, where I'd love to start is just really learning about you and like some of your career, how you got into this position, and then also a little bit about Fullstory. We're also a customer of Fullstory, so I have some bias here in that I know a lot about the platform. But maybe you can start off by just introducing yourself and then also the company.
I've been with Fullstory for 5 years now, and I've been in tech my whole career, so that's 20 plus years, not to date myself, but, dial-up. I started with dial-up sales, so I kinda get the sales side of it too, and then eventually went into help desk, and from there on spun into security about 11 years ago. So I did security engineering, but kinda wasn't my thing looking at logs all day, and I discovered GRC, and I really just loved it ever since. So I've been doing that ever since. And Full Story is a behavioral data company where I work for now, and we put a small JavaScript snippet into code of ours onto your site, and it will capture, but not necessarily like a screenshot or anything. It captures the DOM. So it is actually through a process patented, actually a process that we have called cooking, and it will bring it back out to you in like a pixel perfect recreation of it. So that way you can see what your user is experiencing, what their frustrations are, mouse clicks, mouse movements, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's really cool. Like I'll brag on a little bit as a client of you guys because we use it for our GRC platform, Full Circle. It's really cool because it will basically do playbacks of users who are using your platform, and then you can kind of see all sorts of interesting behavior, like if they got stuck on a button or if they're obviously confused or whatever it might be. And I think one of the coolest things that blows my mind about you guys is that patented piece you said. Like, how in the heck are you guys able to store all of that in such a at scale for all these different users across the whole platform and arrive at those insights? So it's just a very useful. We use it all the time, and cool piece of technology. So it's awesome that you guys are a customer of ours, and then we're a customer of yours. Really neat. And then talk about you mentioned like you're the director of security GRC at Full Circle. You were a little technical earlier in your career, and then before that, maybe not even in security. Can you give us like quick history lesson? Like, how did you get into GRC? How did you get into security?
I was actually stay-at-home mom for about a year or so in between like being doing senior tech support. And then I was like, I had to go back into the workforce for reasons. And then I was looking around and there was something nearby and it said something about risk coordinator or something only a couple miles away at this place called First Data, which they actually process a lot of credit card companies. So my first foray was PCI. And so she hired me because she was like, "We were looking for a weirdo just like you, somebody who has like a more technical past because we already had somebody that filled in all these other pieces like they wanted." So I did network vulnerabilities and basically they would give me a dump of all the findings and I would help go find owners. And so that's basically how I got started. And then from then on, then I was like, I don't know, I wanna be like a super hacker because you always see all in the conferences, you see all those cool people who are like know everything, and I'm like, "Dang, I wanna do that." And so I did that, and I was like, "This is mostly looking at logs." And it was very cool, but it felt like moments of sheer boredom and then moments of sheer horror because you didn't know if you found something that was like, "Uh-oh, I found something," and then you go to, like, all the different groups, and they're like, no, that happens all the time, just that error doesn't matter, and we're working on it," or whatever, or it doesn't even matter at all. So, then I ended up in one of my security engineer position. It was just 2 of us. It was just the CISO and I, and it was a small mobile marketing company. And we were doing PCI as well, so that was, like, the second yeah, that was actually the second one, because I was like, "Oh, I wanna go more into that. And he said he had been looking for somebody like for a year. And I was like, that's crazy. Like, so both positions, it seems like that happens in security too. Like you're looking for somebody who has the kind of either really technical background or like more of a varied background or something like that. And so then the PCI auditors actually came physically into the office. So I was used to that kind of like auditing world. And then I went to the other company and it was like very, they had uh, an entire team that just did PCI and it was global. So it was like so different from the small to the big. But then I kinda learned, like, well, I really kinda like medium-sized companies probably because or startup-y, 'cause Full Story is more startup-y. When I first joined, it was like number 180. So we were at 600, now we're at around 400 people. So we're kind of in that middle, like, we're like teenage.
That's still cool. I mean, you've seen the company more than double. I know that when we started working with Full Story, I guess it was 5 or 6 years ago. It might have been right before you took the position is when we started, and you guys were implementing ISO 27001 for the first time. One of the things that stood out to me, there's kind of these organizational archetypes, and Full Story's definitely got the engineering kind of DNA, which makes sense. The year were kind of more technical originally and became the GRC pro and fit that technical, I guess, archetype that the organization has. What is your full scope of responsibilities? I know we interact with you for 27,001 and 42,001 AI, which we're very excited to talk about a little bit. But talk about your like, what do you do at Full Circle or Full Story? What's your full scope of responsibilities?
So since we're a data company, as you can imagine, like we are a lot of our customers wanna know like how we stack up against different standards and frameworks. So we map and do 10 different frameworks. So we don't just do ISO, we do SOC 2, we do HIPAA, we do PCI. We do like a self-assessment for PCI, obviously, because we're not doing cards or anything. It's actually against our TOS to, I'm gonna throw that in there, to collect credit card data, so or sensitive data, thankfully. So that makes life a lot easier. We deal with a lot of like customer questions and questionnaires, and one of the employees on my team, he'll even join customer calls. I will sometimes too. It just depends on what it is. We're kind of obviously we're small compared to the sales eng team, so they will take a lot of the stuff, but we help train them, so that also helps.
What is the why? Like, so a lot of companies resist investing in compliance and security. You guys obviously are not, or at least not from the outsider's perspective, resisting making those kind of investments. What's the key business driver? If you talk to an executive at Full Story, or yeah, why are they choosing to invest in security and compliance?
Well, I worked hard over the last 5 years to get them to be it's the right thing to do rather than just saying, "Oh, because audit," or "Because we wanna get this standard," or even because customers demand it. Like, there have been some, like, ISO 27001, customers demanded it. There was a couple of, UK people who were potential customers who were like, "If you get this, we will sign with you," and they did. They signed with us right after that. And so sometimes it is, like, competitiveness as well. So I saw one of our competitors get the 7701 before us, and I was like, "Ugh," I was, like, jealous. I'm like, "Okay, that means we need to do something." So now we got that and the 17 and the 18 and now the 4201, so now we're definitely nice and ahead, hopefully.
How do those cover? Like a lot of GRC professionals struggle with that because I think it's clear to us that security and compliance matters. Maybe less clear to the executives because they're thinking about go to market, profitability, like other really important things. So this falls can tend to fall further and further down the priority list. But you've obviously done a good job over the last 5 years of influencing them, making this a priority, getting that investment. Do you chalk that up into anything? Like, what's the secret of you being able to do that?
I would say if anything, it is I do talk about the ROI. I did pitch ISO 42001 to, all the execs, like, in a meeting with the whole pitch and everything, just to get out of band budget in particular, and they were like, "We will find the budget." So I did sell it as, we can win, we can beat our competitors to have this, but also that we wanna do the right thing. So if we have AI governance in the beginning, it's gonna cost us a lot less pain and a lot less hassle if we do it upfront, and that was, like, the goal. That was mainly my main goal, and the rest was just, kind of hopefully massage it in and make it palatable. That, and it's not too many controls either, so that's kinda nice. It's a nice starting place for 42,001. But in general, I feel like, it's kinda selling it a little bit. So And I think sometimes we have to, like, build those relationships as well with the executives and with other people, and so I work hard to do that too, and also another side benefit, maybe you're already even gonna ask this, I don't know, but of ISO 42001 was that we kinda got to get out of our comfort zone, and I got to talk to more engineers and more product managers, and I just saw it kind of as, like, an opportunity to expand, and so our influence, and I think that's a big deal, like, we start with a lot of little things, like, "See something, say something" became one of our mantras as well.
So the goal being, I guess, just to recap, I mean, obviously there's a business goal, there's ROI, trying to beat competitors, but it sounds like, especially with AI, there's like a little bit of like proactiveness to it. Like, hey, let's get a framework here so we can scale this out, know what we don't know, that kind of thing. That makes sense. What about so I know what Risk 360 does. Like we come into our annual assessments, we do ISO internal audits, 42001, 2701, others. How on the inside, how do you use that data? Like how do you use what we're doing for you guys? Do you take those reports to executives? Do you just use it for your own informational purposes? How do you use that?
We use that as one of our KPIs in our IMS. So one of our KPIs is internal and external, just audits and audits in general and any kind of corrective things. It's also just helpful as like a benchmark. So it's something I can say and show like, oh hey, we're pretty good here, but this wasn't as great. And if we do have like a pretty decent audit report or we don't have anything or very minor stuff, I usually use it as, fuel to be like, were there a couple of things that we felt like we were kinda sweating a little bit or we could potentially sweat, then those are things that go on the roadmap. And so when they ask about them in audit, I'm like, "Yeah, we sweated about those a little bit." Like, it was okay evidence, but it wasn't great evidence, like, we weren't proud to put that forward. It was just kinda like, "Okay, it passes," but so I kinda use that as, like, a bar of, like, how comfortable and confident do we feel, and if there's anything that we're kinda, about, then that's what we should do, not just necessarily what's on the paper.
What's the dynamic like ahead of an internal audit? Like, are you coaching the team up? Are you trying to use that as an opportunity to like get people to re-engage on the controls that they own? Like, is it a tool for you at all, the internal or the external audit?
A little bit, yeah, like, they're usually doing them already, and what our IT team has actually asked us for is they want more automated things that just pull screenshots or bug them to pull screenshots, so that's what our next maturity level is going to be, is to have everything, like, let me see, a nice way to say bothering people, not bothering people, but yeah, but pinging people to either add a screenshot or see if there's more things we can train on that we can pull, um yeah, so that's pretty much how we use it, if that answered the question.
How plugged in or how operationalized have you been able to get full circle? Like, are you still managing part of your program out of Excel spreadsheets and Word documents or however else, and then part of it in full circle? Or are you able to like use the platform to manage the program at all yet?
We're using almost everything in it, actually, so it's working out pretty well. There's a couple of things that might always be in sheets just because it's easier for internal people to find those kinds of things, and we use Notion as our internal kinda like wiki and database stuff. Um, but yeah, we've actually gotten quite a bit into the platform, which is good because our last 2, the team hated it. So we didn't end up like, we ended up working outside of the tool more than we were in, so we were
Interesting.
kinda, like, nervous about that. We're like, "Oh, hopefully" I was like, "We need to make sure we get everything in, so that way we can tell if we need to tweak it or ask for features," and y'all have been great about that, so
I don't want to bury the lead because this is interesting to me. So you guys went through two prior I didn't know that fact that you went through two prior GRC platforms before you use Risk 360's Full Circle. What do you think the difference is? Why did those not work and now it works? Was it a timing thing? Are there features like what's the difference?
it was actually 3, and the only reason it was 3 is because we really liked this one from Aptable, but they went out of business, and we're like, "Oh, so sad." Um But there was a couple of things I really liked about it, so I mentioned that to the Full Circle team, and they're like, "Oh, okay." And I was like, "Here," because the other people were just like, "No, we're not gonna do that, like, that's not how our platform works." And so one we bought was a very they're big right now, and they're kinda set up for, like they were a little bit newer then too, so they're probably more mature now. But it did seem like it was great for, like, a startup, but we realized when we got in it, we're like, "Oh, we're not really a startup anymore, like, we're more mature than this, it has all these
Especially with 10
policies."
frameworks, right?
Yeah, we were like, "Oh, okay," and it was kind of like the easy button for people who don't know anything about compliance, and I was like, "All my people are senior, like, we all know all these frameworks, no, I'm like, this doesn't really fit us at all." And they had automations, but all their automations were very vanilla, like, they were mostly set for AWS and we're GCP. They said like, "Oh, we'll get GCP," and they were still implementing everything, so we were like, like, that's not really gonna work." So we ended up working on a tool, and then we got the next one thinking, "Okay, maybe we can at least automate some workflows," and so because it looked like that's what you could do with it, but it was basically a bunch of different modules. So for us, that was kind of a pain because we're like one product, but many frameworks. And I know like some companies are like a different product, a different framework for this product, a different one for that product. So we didn't quite fit like their model either. And so we were like, oh gosh, well, maybe at this point I was like, maybe I should just go back and learn more programming and like make my own because I was like, maybe that's just gonna be easier because and I went back and asked the company that went out of business because I was still with connected to the guy. I said, "What did you guys use?" And he said, "Ruby on Rails." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know that." So
That's funny.
and then, yeah, you guys were like, "Oh, we've been making a lot of improvements to it," 'cause we looked at it here and there, and then we're like, "Oh, I don't know, we'll go with the other one." And then it looked pretty, like, more up our alley, so we're like, "Okay, we'll give it a shot," and so it's been pretty good so far.
It's funny you say that 'cause that's, like, exactly how we talk about Full Circle internally because, for a long time, Full Circle I don't know if you know this history, but it's just how we did our own assessments. So, and, like, when me and Christian White started the company, we, we kinda had this vision to build a SaaS platform, but we're bootstrapping, so we're like, "Hey, look, let's build a SaaS platform to deliver our own work." So for the first 5 or 6 years, it was just for instead of Excel or Word documents, that's how we were doing it, and then we started creating the Full Circle that you see now. And we realized that because we're kind of GRC nerds, like it was kind of inherently built to manage like multiple frameworks, lots of complexity. There were some assumptions that people had a certain amount of subject matter expertise already. So it wasn't really an easy button, but it became this like tool for GRC practitioners. So to hear you play that back, I'm like, oh, cool. You're saying that and seeing it from the team. So now that you've done, let's talk about your 42,001 journey because you're like cutting edge on this. You're the one of the first companies. I think there's like in we're recording this in 2024. I think there's been maybe a half dozen, maybe companies that, and AWS, for example, being one of them, that's done 42,001, and you guys will be doing that very, very soon. So why, you've talked a little bit about it, but like, tell me, why did y'all choose to do 42,001, the artificial intelligence certification?
Once I heard about it, I was just like, "We need to do this." It was just it was, we were basically collecting ISOs with our ever-growing Rolodex of ISOs, and, um, not just that, but I saw what it had in it, like, I was like, "Okay, let's buy the standard, let's look at it," and so I read it all, and I like that it has the guidance all in it, which I imagine it probably won't stay that way in the future, but it is pretty nice, and I was like, "All these are, like, good things to do, and it doesn't seem like that much of a stretch for us to add this." And also, I thought, this is, like we need to be, like as AI is coming out, and there's this one great AI newsletter, I don't know if you ever heard of it, called Neuron, and they're every day, it's, like, something different coming out, and I'm like, "Geez, like, how are we ever gonna keep up with this?" And then I heard about the NIST AI framework, RMF, and then there's, gosh, the European one, and their AI Act, and a lot of people are like, most companies don't even, like, meet the standards, and I thought, well, then if we can meet all these standards, that'll be great, like, for the law itself, I mean. But for 42,001, I talked with y'all, and I talked with A-Line, and one of the folks at A-Line said they think that this is gonna closely follow the EU AI Act, and I'm like, "Why not just go for it now?" Like and I also thought it would be kind of fun to test ourselves because like, nobody knows what they're doing, like, kind of. I mean, we do, but we don't. You know, like, you can read it, but it's like, how do you interpret what kinda evidence you would want for this? And I just kinda nerdly thought it was exciting for us. And, one person on my team, I was like, I want to throw this at her and see how she does with it for fun. And she was just like, what, like, why are you stressing me out? No, I'm kidding. But we were just like, it worked out really good because, yeah, I just thought it was like a fun challenge too. I mean, and plus it's something that it hopefully will have a bunch of longevity, and even if it doesn't, it's as a standard, I mean, but either way, like, the governance it was just kind of an easy add, and we all took your class, your ISO 42001 class, which was really good, by the way.
Nice, thank you. I was early on that one, so I'm glad that it's still decent.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you guys are a classic example of I think a couple factors is like one, you're already doing ISO. So like the idea of a management system and creating an integrated management systems, like very, I would think very intuitive in terms of there's not a lot of change that you guys have to do. And then there's those like AI impact assessments. There's like some good thinking models. As you were implementing that, like what did you find to be most valuable for your team or for the engineers? Were there any elements of the framework that like they were like, oh, this is a good thinking model. We really should be thinking about that. Anything like that?
Yeah, I think data provenance was a really good one, especially that what we already do was good because they were like, "Oh, we have set to 0 retention." And everybody's like, "Great, we're not training on any models." And so they were they were kind of like, "Oh, wait." It was neat when talking to the engineers because they were like, "Well, like, wow, okay, this is interesting." And they really thought it was interesting that people were thinking about these things, that they were I mean, in our case, we have great engineer team. They're always thinking ahead and everything. They are really cutting edge. So I was like super impressed that we already had that in place. I was like, oh wow, we just have to document it. That's that's incredible. But also, I was surprised by that. And like the AI impact assessment, I thought had a lot of the AI system impact assessment had a lot of value to it because it does ask you to consider a lot of things that you wouldn't maybe think about. Like it asks good questions, I think.
Do you think that it changed the relationship between you and the engineering team? Like, did they appreciate that you guys were bringing some ideas and some structure to this concept?
Yeah, they did, and one of them even sat in on the internal audit calls that he didn't need to sit in on. Because I said, "Are you sure? Do you wanna join?" He goes, "Yeah, this is really interesting just to see how the whole process works." Because to him, it was, like, all a new process because he had never been involved in any of it really. Because when we went and did security and privacy, it was other teams that would give us the evidence for it, and so he wasn't personally involved with it, and I thought that was really cool. That was a really cool, like, breaking down silos kinda situation.
It's funny you mentioned I haven't really thought about this in terms of put words to it, but like one of the side benefits of ISO 42001 in particular is that phenomena. Like there's so much interest around AI that people are like chomping at the bit to get any exposure to structure and governance that they can. So like when we go to other companies and we do 27001, which is security, or 27701, which is privacy, that's kind of people have been doing that for years. So there's like less interest, like there's more people just kind of understand that. But if we come somewhere and like are going to implement a 42001 program or audit it, we'll see that all the time where it's like other stakeholders who typically never join our calls are just wanting to listen in because they're curious like how that's all going. And the GRC professionals and the security teams that are working on it also are getting the same kind of benefit you're talking about, where it's like, yeah, they're actually appreciating that we're bringing this net new knowledge to the company in the form of a framework, which sometimes you don't get that. How do you think the market's going to respond? Like, what's y'all's plans? By the time people hear this, you guys will have already released to the world that you're 42001. But like, how do y'all think you'll use it? Are you gonna spike the football? Are you gonna keep it quiet? What's your plans?
I think we're keeping it, loud as possible, so that way yeah, it's, so that everybody will know that we did this and that, yeah, it's brand new. And it's kind of also like a teaching moment. So we get to basically teach the industry why this is important, why this matters. And also customer assurance, we were really hoping because there are, I would say especially like financial institutions and like some other industries are very scared of AI. So just the just like the you mention it and they're like, "No, no, we don't want this in our contract. We don't want any AI kind of stuff." And totally understandable because it seems like there's 2 camps. There's people who are really excited about it and maybe not thinking so much about the security. I know it's not a security standard, but I'm glad we have like all of it together. But and then there's some people who are kinda in the middle. I guess I'm kind of in the middle, actually. There's some of it's exciting, so I was like, "I don't know how that's gonna turn out, but we'll see." And, so that's really good too. We were thinking of the customer assurance piece, which I didn't specifically mention, but yeah, that's one that we really are really excited about.
So Risk 360, we've already seen in several contracts, either people trying to prohibit AI outright, which usually doesn't survive the contract, or they want, I saw one recently that was, basically it said anytime we use AI or use AI in a new way, we had to alert them, which meant functional, we'd have to create an alert process, and everything in between. I haven't, I'm waiting for like privacy, have the data protection addendums. They have all these contractual addendums. I'm wondering if we're going to see that, like an AI addendum where people will spell out how you can use AI and all the processes around that. Are y'all seeing anything like that? Are you seeing contracts come through with AI requirements?
Yeah, and we even had one that was like, "No AI, no algorithms," and we're like, you're buying a SaaS tool, so it's that's not what algorithm means." So we had to like, yeah, one of our lawyers was like, she's like, this is strange." So not sure how we're gonna do that one, but we're gonna have to go back and let them know. So it has definitely been like, yeah, a learning process for people too that don't really know exactly what it means. It's like, that sounds scary, like Skynet or something, and they just want to shut it down.
Yeah, we're seeing the same thing. We're coaching other companies that want to do business with us because they put these kind of contractual clauses in there, and we're trying to coach them through like, what risk are you actually worried about? Like, let's address that and let's right size this. Which is funny from a GRC perspective because I have sales guys knocking on my door asking us to move it quickly, and we're trying to manage risk. So like that whole revenue piece that GRC plays in, because you're touching revenue plus you're managing through risk, you're touching the engineering team, makes it really really interesting, I think. How is Full Story using AI? Can you talk about any of that? Are there any like cool features that you guys are using in terms of how you're using AI?
Yeah, like right now, it's a little more simple. So it's customers' data on their own data. So there's a session summary. So say if you watch a session, you're like, oh my gosh, my coworker needs to see this. You can, but you don't want to like write out exactly like what happened in the session. You can click a button to say summarize with AI, and it will kind of give a little quick summary of what the session is showing. And you can send it. And we have like a thumbs up and a thumbs down. So we get that actually is piped to a Slack channel. So we can see like, oh, people didn't like that or that wasn't accurate. So we can tweak it and fix it and work on it. But so far that one's probably the most popular one. And then we have AI trim, which it'll try to trim like one of your selectors. So if you're like doing CSS selectors, you can say suggest something. So it'll like suggest a better one or kind of cut it down a little bit. And that one's it's all in GA, but I think that one's a little more experimental. So, but both of them are. So it's possible they might stay in the tool forever, or if we get feedback or really nothing, then we'll change it. But we are working on some other things that I can't see yet, but it's a multi-year thing to help people a lot more, and it's very exciting. So it's only gonna get better.
I'm such a huge fan. Like I know like we'll have like our UX designer hop in and watch some folks and some new stuff that we're rolling out. And one of their jobs historically has been, okay, I'm seeing things happen. How do I summarize that so we can fix it? So being able to use AI theoretically to like summarize some of that activity is like that's not actually a simple thing. That's huge amounts of value. So I think that's a really cool idea. I love like if I'm watching you and you're frustrated, you're clicking a button. It's like Ann was frustrated, clicking a button, we can go fix it. It's just huge. It's so cool. Love to get those kind of insights. I just love what y'all are building. It's so
Well,
neat.
we even made the joke. I forget there was one thing, and I was like, and Lisa was joking on my team. She was like, "I'm gonna click it more so they'll know. So it'll do a rage click, and this will be." And I'm like, "I wonder if they'll see it if I do this."
It probably will. You write us a note in there, and yeah, you don't even have to submit tickets. We'll just flag your user and then and get our feedback from that. Awesome. So you guys have an awesome program, some new frameworks. Give us some advice. So one of the things I've observed about you guys that maybe you don't know is unique, but because I see hundreds of programs is unique, is one, engineering team, like your team has a great relationships, from my perspective at least, with the other teams inside your company, like engineering. There seems to be some intuition in that the teams that we work with at Full Story appreciate security. They don't view it necessarily as a burden. It's kind of it's a natural motion for them, largely. Like that's the feeling we get. You might have a different perspective. Whereas other organizations we work with, sometimes there can be a huge amount of friction between the GRC team and the teams doing the work like the engineering team. So my assessment is culturally or something that you're doing is really working in terms of being able to scale that program out, continue to do good stuff. So what advice would you give like other GRC professionals if they're struggling in that area culturally? Are there a few things that you can point to that you think you're doing or that your team or company's doing that ends up in those kind of results?
I'm lucky that there's a lot of smart people, and in particular where I'm at right now, and we have a philosophy of not hiring jerks, so that super helps a lot. I mean, that alone, not that they're, not in every company, but, so that definitely makes everybody's, like, willing to help. I remember when I joined, I'm like, "Wow, everybody's so smart." I'm like, "Am I as smart as them?" I'm like, "I don't know. I guess they hired me, so I guess so." So hopefully I can, but, also, it really helped that in other companies, I've had to, like, sell it more, and then I get, like, and here not so much. I mean, and here I'm more, um, encouraging people to do the right thing, but I've noticed when things are tough, it's easy to say, "Well, okay, there's these last few controls, people really aren't on board. I guess I'll say, 'You know what? We gotta do this because of audit.'" And I think that's a mistake. Like, that's the mistake that I've noticed even from myself, like, when I was in a place that was tougher. I coulda turned it around instead of saying, "These few less controls, just do them because of audit." I should have said, like, sell this, like, not sell it, but I should say more like learn storytelling, like, and build relationships, and then I've done that a lot more here. It's a little easier 'cause, it's just I think because I was the first person to do it, a lot of people were like, "I have no idea what to do," and I was like, "Okay, you do this, this, this." And they're like, "Wow, really? That was it? It's that simple?" I also try to, like, break it down and make it really simple for people. It's like, you don't have to, like, um give a dissertation, and I also try to make security fun. Like, I'll kinda hard just reflected back at a former employee, and she was introducing me to somebody else, and as she was saying stuff, I was like, "Oh, I didn't realize that I did anything different." But I always like to learn with laughter, so, like, we had, one company called Ninja for a while, and that was great because they were like little cartoons, and they were fun but memorable, so they really stuck with people too. They're like, "I don't wanna be that one guy in that video, so I'm not gonna do that," but they were laughing about it, so to me, I think that really helps a lot, like, so I'll make cheesy jokes, like, one time I used a burrito as an example. Like, eating a burrito for risk, I'm like, "How could you reduce your risk? Is you're eating this burrito and you have a white shirt on and of it spilling?" And everybody was, like, typing stuff in the chat because it was, like, a webinar that we were doing, and when I was doing it, and I was like, "This is" at first I was like, "This is so strange," but I'm like, "No, I'm just gonna, like, be myself and be a little weird and quirky because that's who I am." And it kinda worked out better than trying to, like, be super buttoned up, and so it kinda did give me that freedom to not be as buttoned up. I wanted our policies to be fun too, but I was like, "Eh, can only take it so far," but yeah.
I think that authenticity goes a long way. Even our own team, when they talk about Ann over at Full Story, like they describe you in that way, like authentic, like passionate about the frameworks, like likes to dive in, like all that kind of stuff. So when you act authentically, I think that people just appreciate that, and obviously you do that. Talk about and talk about your program going forward. Like, are there any like areas that you're hoping to take the program to the next level? Other frameworks that you're excited about? Just levels of maturity that you want to stretch yourself? Like, what's next for you guys in your program?
I think next for us is to maintain what we have and we always do continuous improvement, but to give ourselves a little more breathing room to do that this year because we've been adding one every year, adding an ISO every year. So this year, I can't say for sure because we might get excited about another one and add it just like we did AI. But, yeah, I think we're basically going to continue to improve what we have, and then I'm trying to think. I had a whole thing of what I was thinking of for our vision. Oh, yes, the evidence collection. So that's one thing we wanna use for Full Circle 4 is streamlining that evidence collection so we can get it more automated. Because we have a lot of enterprise customers that I was gonna say ask or demand, but they're like, "Oh, great, you have all these things. Yeah, now fill out our assessment." And we're like, "Well, what? We have all these ISOs, we have all the SOC 2. We're like, oh man, you still don't feel comfortable? Yikes. And so then they also want to do like the actual evidence. We've had some that just they're like, no, we have to have it. Or they'll have their own third party auditor if they're a really big company that we've noticed. So we're like, okay. So one of our mottos has always been like, if anyone comes to audit us, that we're excited about it. And so like, because it's no big deal, we're just like, okay, it's not a big deal. It's just another day. And so we do have some stuff and it's gotten a lot more organized, but it's not really like it's not like clockwork, like it's repeatable, but it's not like oh no, it's automated. We would call it bionic. We changed some of our watchwords to be winning ways now, but we did have one that was called bionics. And it is basically it's for something to be either as automated as it can be or as efficient as it can be. And so we really want to bionicize. That's one of our terms, bionicize this process. So I think that's what we'll be looking forward to like a lot in this year.
I think there's huge opportunities. Like we're seeing that across the industry, just basically reducing cost and complexity of all the compliance management, and not necessarily like the audit costs, but like all the costs associated with bothering engineers to collect evidence or going through third party audits and being audit ready at any given time, and mapping the 10 different compliance frameworks that you're working on, so it's one piece of evidence across multiple controls instead of asking the engineer for the same screenshot over and over. So there's huge amounts of opportunity there. So cool. So, and we've covered a lot of ground. So we talked about your career, how you broke in and thrived. We've talked about like how you've sold internally ISO 27001 and 42001 and all the other different frameworks, and how you're helping that add value to the business. We talked through your ISO 42001 journey, which is really cool. I think people are going to love to hear that. You gave some great tips on building culture and making the programs fun, and then now you're optimizing the program. So you've done a great job. Like super impressed. Hear nothing but good things from the team, and we appreciate you as a customer, as a thought leader. So thanks for doing this.
I appreciate it. Thank you. And we appreciate you as well. We've gotten so much help for, especially like the 27701 when we went to do the privacy one. We were like, the standard is, I'm like, this is confusing. Okay. Like we just we'll tap you guys and you help us out. And it helped so much. And we've used that over the last 3 years for all kinds of stuff, just to be like, call you guys up and be like, am I thinking of this control correctly? Or am I just like overthinking it? And usually I am overthinking it. But yeah, so that's been great.
The connected Slack channel. Everybody loves the connected Slack channel. It's like the best kept secret. Well, this was great. Anything else you want to talk about or add before we close out?
No, I can just recommend you to anybody that wants to use Risk 360. I think they'd be doing a good job.
You're the best.